a bid. If you award pursuant to a RFP, RFQ for a professional, then it classifies as fair and open, which means that they can make contributions politically. A non-fair and open is when you award to contractors that do services on a no-bid process. You just award it. So if they anticipate earning 17.5 and above, then they cannot make contributions. So you have to always disclose who's part of a non-fair and open process, because they're not supposed to be making contributions if they're earning more than 17.5.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Is this resolution specific to a contract that's going to be put out or given to a contractor, or is this just across the board?
These are providers of services to the township in the upcoming year, and they are provided under a non-fair and open. They're not put out for bids. So they're not to be making contributions. I think there's a limit of $300 or $500. I'd have to check that because it changed periodically, if I recall. But they're not to be making contributions in more than that because they anticipate earning 17.5 or greater.
And my understanding is that that is based on what we've done business-wise with these contractors in 2019. And what Mr. Carlemere is saying is correct. If they made more than 17,005 but less than 40,000, then they have to go on this resolution pursuant to state statute and the auditors.
So this is anticipating that we may do work with these companies listed here
Based on
the previous year.
correct.
Okay, understood. Thank you. And you can tell me if this next question is out of scope. But Mr. Cardis, I wanted to follow up on the Lakeland Street hockey rink bid from last meeting. You had said you'd had a couple concerns. Were those concerns resolved?
I'll need you to save that for the second public portion, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Highball?
Good evening, Pete Heinbaugh, Morningstar Court.
Good evening.
I have a couple questions, two different agenda items. The first one's also on Resolution 329. Last year, this exact same list included R.D. Zulli, and there was a little back and forth last year whether they should have been eligible for this non-fair and open contract because of their level of donations. Did we ever get a final answer to that question from last year?
What was that question?
R.D. Zulli was on this list last year. R.D. Zulli gave political contributions in Gloucester Township, but they were on the list to be awarded a non-fair and open contract.
So when you asked that question last year, that wasn't responded to?
I don't remember a final response to it, no.
I don't recall that. I know that we had a long discussion regarding this, but do you recall, Mr. Carter?
I don't recall. My recollection is that we didn't have a figure of what they anticipated to earn when the contracts were awarded. Correct. They might have anticipated earning under 17.5.
Well, they were on the list, so we did anticipating them 17.5 last year.
So I thought R.D. Zulli was awarded a contract through the GTMUA, and that we entered into a shared service agreement to use R.D. Zulli as did the GTMUA when they put out their specs for emergency job work. And I thought that we did a resolution to enter into that agreement with GTMUA.
Okay.
Which really doesn't answer the question of if they were in non-compliance with the non-fair and open a year ago, because I don't think we ever got that answer.
It might from the standpoint of the process of procurement, in as much as the GTMUA has gone about to get proposals and to award a contract to R.D. Zulli, and then we're participating in that process of bidding by a shared service or a cooperative purchasing agreement.
You're
I don't
saying,
recall which we did, but in the past, we have done those resolutions. I thought we did one this year.
so you're saying a year ago, RD Zilli should not have been on that
It
list?
very well may be the case, Pete.
Okay. Well, they continue to make political contributions in Gloucester Township, so, what business are they doing now in the township?
I don't think they've done anything for us this year. I don't think we've used it.
Okay. And you did say Land Dimensions has been removed from this?
Yes.
Okay, because they do have given political contributions to Gloucester Township, so.
And the reason that was removed is because they participated in the RFQs for professionals, and they were awarded the sidewalk engineer.
And in that case, you're allowed to give political contributions and then get awarded that contract, which they have done. They've given political
I'll
contributions.
defer to.
And then have been awarded the contract. Yeah. A third one though, is Bill Lewis Concrete. I see that they've also given political they are on this list tonight, and they have given political contributions in Gloucester Township. And I have individual contribution dates and amounts. So
that's contribution to a political or candidate committee in the name of Gloucester Township.
and during what period of time would that?
Well, so I guess you have to know who they're making contributions to also.
Yes, but during what period of time? I have that, but what period of time is in question?
Previous 1 year.
Yeah, previous 1 year.
So from November 2019 to back to November 2018. They've given, Bill Lawless has given contributions to the school board candidates during that time. Does that make them eligible so
It's
they
not
can,
a political or candidate committee in the name of Gloucester Township.
so they can get around it and still get
This
this?
is
I don't know
us.
if it's giving around proper expression.
They can make political donations to the town, but not be in non-compliance.
Not to a political or candidate committee in the name of Gloucester Township.
Okay,
Mr. Heimball, do you have another question? Because your time's up.
I'll let others speak. I do have another one, but I'll let others.
Is there anyone else? Ms. Coyne?
He's going to choose Laney Road. I have a question in regard to ordinance 01917.
We are having a public hearing for that. If you'd like to save your question for that time.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Sweet?
Sam Sweet from Ariel. Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Orlando, you sound stuffy.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
With the resolution, I don't have it, not the non-fair and open. It's the resolution transferring the capital budgets, $1 million transferring over. Just trying to get clarification on that. Resolution 333,
It's canceling, not transferring, canceling.
canceling. So ordinance 1017, is that from 2010? If I'm reading that correctly?
The 1017 would be from 2010.
2010, and then 14 is from 2014,
so on up
and so
to
forth down the line. So when you say canceling it, that $1 million, we borrowed that at some point.
Correct.
We've been paying interest on that at some point.
Correct.
Now, when you say cancel, can I get a definition of that cancel? What do you mean by canceling? Like we're going to return that money to pay off the loan?
That is correct. It's considered when it's canceled, if it's anticipated as a line item in the upcoming budget, it goes in to offset the debt service. And the state allows that as one of the methods of canceling capital. The other would be to reallocate it for other purposes. You would have to create an ordinance to do that, but we choose to cancel it and use it against our overall debt service.
Okay, so just so I'm trying to understand it. In 2010, for various capital improvements, we borrowed in excess of $90,000. 2014, we borrowed in excess of approximately $191,000.
These are remaining balances from.
For projects?
The remaining balances from various capital budgets that were funded over that period, those period of years, yes.
Okay, 1702 says various drainage projects, but is that fall under stormwater drains? Because isn't that a separate budget?
It is if it's under the NJEIT, but in this case, this is under the regular general fund, capital budget.
Because I actually went back and pulled that ordinance. I couldn't find drainage projects on there.
I'm sure it has to be because the CFO went through this painstakingly with myself and the mayor, and she did show us that the money was available.
Okay, so if I maybe stop by, that's all, obviously not go through that here, but stop by and look at that.
I'm sure she would meet with the insurance. So
Okay, but the bottom line is we borrowed $1 million that we're now canceling, but we paid interest on it for up to 9 years on the one part and then 5 years on the other parts. Is that correct?
if you borrow money, you're going to pay interest on it.
Okay, so I guess my question is there a better way to tighten up the capital budgets that we're borrowing?
I don't
Because-
think so. No, I don't think so.
There's no,
Can I ask? So, Tom, if I understand this correct, a project was bid. They gave us an estimate of what they thought it was gonna cost.
Correct.
In many of these cases, the work was done for less than what the bid was for.
That's also correct.
So the amount that was saved is basically what we're dealing with.
Correct. And we're doing what we've done in the past, which is canceling those balances. And when you cancel them, they cancel to fund balance.
This is the process done throughout the state.
Other towns do it. I don't know whether the state does it or not.
okay, I was questioning the process because I just wanted to understand it. You are sending that $1 million, that's going to pay down the outstanding loans, go towards the $35 million budget or $35 million bond that we took out this year?
When it goes into the budget on the revenue side, it's considered to be offsetting debt service.
Okay.
By definition of the state.
Okay, but 35 million, we borrowed $35 million in a bond in July or August, correct?
We did, wrapped up a funding of about 30.
Okay, and I believe the interest rate was 3%, which is about 93% of 35 million is 90,000?
I don't recall the
Or-
interest rate.
Roughly, let's say whatever the interest rate is. So now we have $1 million that's gonna come in. That $1 million is going to pay the interest, or it's gonna go to the $35 million bond to make that now bond 34 million. In essence, lowering our interest rate.
No, it would go in, if it's anticipated in this year's budget coming up in the 2020 budget, it goes in to offset the debt service for that particular year,
And so the debt service would be the interest.
principal and interest.
Principal and interest, so it's not going directly towards the bottom line of 35 million. It's gonna be broken up in a portion.
Yep.
Okay, and again, there's no way to tighten up the over borrowing?
Listen, we start with lists. There are estimates of project costs. Typically, when they're on the engineering, they're a little higher because you want to make sure that we're able to cover the bids when they come in. We hope to be able to save money when the bids come in. That happens quite often, and that's a good thing.
But we're still paying interest on that, and we've been paying interest on it so that's technically a bad thing because we've been paying interest on money we technically didn't need. Is that correct? Am I understanding that? I mean, I understand the bid came in lower, which is good.
We didn't need it, but in reality, when we created the budget, we felt that we needed it to be fiscally responsible.
What happens, Tom, if the projects come in over what they bid?
Sometimes we'll award them, sometimes we'll reject it because it's outside the budget scope. Anthony, I'm sure, is familiar with that process. It depends, all depends on what we're looking at that point. You know, other items could come in lower, and therefore we can move money around to offset that overage.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Polidoro. Mr. Hireball, do you intend to come back during this public portion? Because our first public portion is only 15 minutes. We've exceeded that time.
Okay, the answer is no.
Mr. Polidoro, you'll be our last speaker.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidor from the Historic Village of Ariel.
Good evening.
I didn't initially have any questions on this, but listening to the conversation invoked one. I'm just trying to absorb. You've had these capital improvements canceled from 2010. Over that period of time, almost 10 years, these have sat dormant. And what was the thought process while these were dormant and actually doing nothing? What was the thought process of the administration and council while that service is there and that those amounts of money are there?
I can't specifically speak on any particular item. Generally, we make sure that we have enough money to close out a project. Projects can last several years. I know, for example, we're doing the gun range right now. That's been almost going into 2 years now on that project. You know, I can't speak of any particular project, to be honest with you.
All right. And one of the things, and Mr. Hutchison was kind enough to put this thought in my mind in his many what ifs. So I'm going to ask you, what if? What if these things and amounts were sitting around? What if you had done these types of things during the year that you increased taxes, almost double digits and double digits in those years? Would they have offset or lessened the burden of tax increase on the taxpayers in those years?
I can't say. I mean,
Well, if anybody could, you're the accountant, right?
yeah, but I mean, we structured the debt so that it basically stays even. There is a lot of thought process that goes into how to borrow and how to structure that so that we don't have spiking effects. So we try to keep that nice and level.
You said that you could reallocate it to, would that include the general fund?
That's basically where it's being reallocated to. It's being canceled. When I say reallocated, you would have a bond ordinance that you would adopt, and you would amend it and move it over to another ordinance. There's two ways to handle that.
So let me ask you in this,
Appropriate it within the capital fund, which takes an ordinance, or cancel it to fund balance, which means you would anticipate it in the general fund and it would go to offset debt service.
let me ask you in the more specific terms. Let's go back a couple of years with the almost 12% tax increase that we had. Could any of these have offset that huge tax increase? Could that have been put into a general fund where the people would not have gotten hit with such a tax increase?
I really don't know how to answer that because I don't know whether it would or would not. I don't think it would because you're talking nominally. When we talk about and it may seem like a lot of money to us because it's $1 million, but $1 million is roughly about 2.1 cent, maybe 2.2 cents. So I would tell you no, not over that period of time. I would doubt it.
I mean, the
Well,
most,
12.5 cent tax increase, which I don't recall what year that was. I mean, we've had,
just pick an even number of years, probably a tax increase, 14, 16, 18. Just, that'll be easy to always remember.
I mean, I remember we had a 24-cent tax increase. Remember that one?
I remember 26. I remember 21 and 26.
About
Okay.
24.
But anyhow, okay. And I was, like I said, just wondering, could this have done something more positive at a more crucial time? And your response is you're not quite sure, but okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We close the first public portion. Proclamation.
Drive sober, get pulled over 2019, you're on holiday crackdown. Whereas approximately 1/3 of all fatal traffic crashes in the United States involves impaired drivers. And whereas impaired driving crashes killed 10,551 people in the United States in 2018. And whereas impaired driving crashes cost the United States almost $44 billion a year. And whereas during the past 5 years, New Jersey's roads experienced 36,778 crashes and 679 fatalities involving impaired drivers. And whereas an enforcement crackdown is planned to combat impaired driving, and whereas the season at the end of the year is traditionally a time of social gatherings, which often include alcohol. And whereas the State of New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety has asked law enforcement agencies throughout the state to participate in the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over 2019 year-end crackdown, holiday crackdown. And whereas the project will involve increased impaired driving enforcement from December 6th, 2019 through January 1st, 2020. And whereas an increase in impaired driving enforcement and a reduction in impaired driving will save lives on our roadways. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Gloucester declares its support for the Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over 2019 year-end holiday crackdown from December 6, 2019 through January 1st, 2020, and pledges to increase awareness of the dangers of drinking and driving.
Minutes?
Executive session of November 6th, 2019, and regular session November 13th, 2019, and November 25th.
May I have a motion to waive the reading, accept the minutes of executive session November 6th and regular sessions November 13th and 25th?
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison,
Yes.
Mr. Owens,
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs,
Yes for November 6th, no for November 13th.
And the 25th? 25th? You okay on the 25th? Yeah, here we go. So yes to the 25th?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Mrs. Winters,
Yes.
Mrs. Strato,
No to November 4th and yes to the regular sessions.
and I'm sorry, I had to have a correction on there. I had the 4th on the original one, but we
that
she's
was-
swearing in, so we
That's
changed
right,
it to the
yeah.
6th.
Okay, sorry.
So it's corrected on here. Mr. Mercado.
Yes to all. Next, we have an ordinance. There will be, it's our second reading. There will be a public hearing. Ordinance 0-19-17. It's ordinance authorizing execution of tax abatement agreement between the Township of Gloucester and Shoes Landing LLC for premises block 9708, lot 1, CO 300, located at 1387-1389 Shoes Landing Road, pursuant to C441 PL 1991 NJSA 4821-1 at SEC and ordinance number 0-19-16. It's a priority tax abatement for the property located at 1387-389 Shoes Landing Road. It's a 5-year tax abatement, 0, 30, 50, 70, 90%, and after year 5, they pay 100% on the improvements. They're currently paying tax on the land. We'll now open up the public hearing. Ms. Coyne?
Denise Coyne, Choose Landing Group. I was wondering, could somebody tell me who owns Choose Landing LLC?
Our tax assessor, Mr. Palumbo, is here. Mr. Palumbo, can you provide that information to Ms. Coyne?
Yes, the owner, I think, is Shoes Landing Associates LLC, whoever's the owner of that.
Are you looking for a specific name?
Yes.
I don't have the corporate names on exactly who's involved in that. I know it's usually represented by David Cohen, who's usually the manager that sends the
But he's not
paperwork
the
to me.
owner of the LLC.
Well, there could be several owners of the LLC. I don't have that information.
It's not on,
Secretary of State.
it's not on an application or anything in the tax
No,
office?
no, we don't have to have an exact name.
Okay. And could you tell me what improvements are being done on that property that this tax abatement applies to?
Mr. Palumbo?
It's a new office building right down here.
Yeah, I know where it is, but they're actually building a new,
Well, it's already done. It's the third building that's in the middle there.
okay, is there any portion of this property that's currently paying 100%?
No.
So they're all still under
Oh,
tax
all the
abatement?
other ones are all finished, yes. This will be the next one. The other ones are now finished. Building 2, I think, is in their 4th year.
So are there any that are paying 100%?
Buildings 4, 5, 6, and 7, and the senior center, which I think is building 8, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, and my last question regards ordinance 01916. It's my understanding that that ordinance makes the whole township an area in need of rehabilitation, correct?
I don't have Mr. Lechner.
It's this ordinance 1917?
No.
No, 1916.
1916. Without having that in front of me,
I
no, it's
don't-
not there.
I don't
That's-
believe so. I don't believe that's the ordinance. That ordinance was done in the, I think in the 80s.
Okay, but all of Gloucester Township has been determined to be an area in need of rehabilitation, correct?
I understand, my understanding from the ordinance that I'm referencing that I don't have the number for.
Okay. So my question is, if anyone can come into the township and basically build anywhere and get a tax abatement, what's the incentive for somebody to build, for example, on Blackwood Clementon Road versus prime real estate at the outlet?
What's the incentive?
Yeah, like if I was going to come into the township and open a business, why would I go to Blackwood Clementon Road if I could go and get prime real estate, for example, at the outlet?
Well, let me think about that. Chuck, you want to take a stab, and then I'm
Well,
going to.
yeah, well, the issue is that when, in order to do these abatements, the state has to give you permission to do so, which they did through all their economic research, and it does go back into the 80s, as Mr. Lechner has mentioned. But it was in order to provide a stimulus option or for certain areas that desperately need it, which the township does. Now, whether it's economically depressed or there are other issues that involve that, yes, the entire township has been set up and
Right.
given approval. You can't.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say is, doesn't that make it almost impossible to improve Blackwood Clementon Road?
It's going to depend on whatever the builder or developer would want to do. Now, Blackwood Clementon Road, the prices are a lot less than what they're going for out at where the outlets are, that area, the price per square foot, ground area. But, we've tried to do whatever we can to get, with our economic development team to try and get people to come in and take various areas that we feel are in need of development. Now, there's not a lot of property left in town, that's open for basic.
If I can just comment, the Royal Farms is new construction, that's under an abatement program.
Well, actually, it is not. They didn't request one.
Well, I can't help that, but.
Right, but that's.
But they could have requested.
They could
Yes, they could have, correct.
It
You
was-
have that, you have other several projects that are ongoing on Blackwood Clementon Road that are on paper. And they will also be in the same situation if they were eligible.
Such as the AT&T store.
For the AT&T store, yes, that became one, and there's other properties that are on.
Yeah, well, I know there's a few, but it just seems to me, if you could, the whole township is an area in need of rehabilitation, it kind of lumps everything together and doesn't really give any, special incentives for the true blighted areas.
Well,
That's my point.
just one other thing before Ken mentioned it. The areas in need of what in essence would be commercial and industrial rehabilitation, it's not necessarily for the term blighted. It's necessary for the areas that are designated for commercial and industrial use that definitely could use it. And the rateable covers the entire township, not one particular area. So that's one of the reasons why the town is trying to open up the entire area or the entire township borders for this particular purpose. That's why we did it. That's going back to the 1980s.
Mr. Lechner?
I'd just like to add, I don't have the numbers provide, but there's more traffic on Blackwood Clementon Road probably than any other municipal road, county road in Gloucester Township. So that is an incentive. And as Mr. Carter's had indicated, I'm going to piggyback on what he said. There's been significant amount of development of Blackwood Clementon Road. Starting at Kelly Driver, the Commerce Square 1 has been totally renovated to facade.
You don't see a whole lot of businesses coming in there though. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that there isn't
Well, you
any,
have,
I'm just,
Commerce Square, Rural Farms, Pet Boys, new AT&T store, the old former Diamond Diner, and it was a steakhouse, is now Favorites. The AutoZone is new.
yeah, I understand that. I'm just wondering
Ms.
what
Coy, can you let
the,
him finish,
The
please?
retail
Thank you.
center where Starbucks is, that's all new. There's been a lot of, McDonald's is getting a renovation, the Taco Bell is new. There's been a significant amount of redevelopment of Blackwood Clementon Road.
okay, I didn't say there wasn't. My, point was really, I just wanted to know if there was some special incentive.
Well, there must be a reason why people are going, businesses are going there, because just of all the ones I just listed. I don't think there's any reason why someone wouldn't want to go to Blackwood Clementon Road. It has been developed years ago, probably late 60s, early 70s, so a lot of those shopping centers are what we call gray field. But there's been, I think, and as a planner, there's been a significant amount of redevelopment of Blackwood Clementon Road.
Ms. Coyne, ordinance 0-19-116 allowed the township to enter agreements with developers for tax abatement on commercial, industrial, and multiple dwelling apartments, improvements, or for class 4 projects, which are commercial, industrial, senior citizen, and age-restricted apartments, and that allowed for a period up to 5 calendar years. That's what that was referenced in the ordinance.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Heimbaugh.
Pete Heimbaugh, Morningstar Court. Just to follow up, just also in that ordinance 16 that you just read off, that does, just to verify, that does allow rehabilitation for the entire township. I mean, that's what that ordinance says, right?
The entirety of Township Council is determined by the Department of Community Affairs to be in areas of need of rehabilitation.
Right.
It just reiterates because this also amends the ordinance from 1989,
So we're just
updating.
copy and pasting, not updating, it's the same. It's not doing any updating, we're just renewing it.
Required to update it, I believe, every 10
Renewing
years.
it, okay, but no really updating. So this is the same procedure we had in place, the same rules we've had in place since 1989. So you just explained that all the traffic on Blackwood Clementon Road and elsewhere, so why do we offer abatement? I mean, we just explained some reasons why it's a great place for a developer and a new business to come. Why do we offer abatements? Why do we?
I'm going to have a
offer
deja
that.
vu moment because we had this discussion
Yeah,
earlier
right.
this year. And
Still,
I guess you didn't like my answer back then. I'm going to tell you the same thing. It serves as a marketing tool for our town to compete with other competing towns. Down the Berlin-Cross Keys corridor, our friends in Winslow, Washington Township, Monroe Township offer those abatements. We offer those abatements as
for
well.
the entirety of those other towns, for the entirety of the town, like we
I'm
do.
not familiar with that in the entirety of the town, but they offer that.
So with this specific ordinance that we're for this reading today, this office space, commercial space on Choose Landing Road, right down the street, must be saying this developer wouldn't have come there and redeveloped this without an abatement. Is that?
I'm saying that is probably something that was attractive to the developer. And they took full advantage of it.
Tax abatements, just by their nature, are undesirable things. You're spreading the tax burden on the rest of the existing homeowners, like all of us. You're giving an unfair competitive advantage to existing businesses who are in the same line of business as this commercial developer, giving this new one a government handed out special competitive advantage. So it's not ideal. It's undesirable in my opinion. And you're squeezing out funding for the fire districts and the school districts and things like that. So these things aren't, by their nature, are not desirable things. A tax abatement is not a desirable thing by their nature. You might say it's an incentive, but the best case would, we would need that incentive because these things are a tax abatement is an undesirable thing. Is that?
I disagree.
Absolutely. And can we just be clear on these abatements? In all the other towns around us, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, the abatement applies to the entire town. So you build anywhere in that town, they have an abatement. So we're in competition with all the surrounding municipalities, and if we don't have that abatement, somebody could very well make the decision not to build in our town.
The outlets. The outlets. What happens if the outlets went somewhere else?
Dave and Buster's. Dave and Buster's.
Pete, how do you feel about
We don't
the
really have much, it's kind of anecdotal that they would or would not have come here without.
You want
You can't have it
labels,
both
but you don't want to be competitive.
I'm saying this, for this example, this property, this commercial property on Trues Landing Road is not blighted. The developer must want to come there because they can get
Be
tenants.
Discriminatory. Be discriminatory.
No, we can target, you can target to
No,
blighted,
you cannot target.
no, not to individual companies, but to geographical
You
strips.
cannot.
You have to either go all town or nothing.
Chuck, I'll defer to you, but I don't think you can do that.
You have to go all town. We couldn't say the Blackwood Clemington Road corridor and the,
Well, the issue here with this is not necessarily the developer who builds the building, it's getting the tenant in there. And trying to get a tenant in there, getting a tenant established sometimes it takes 3, 4, 5 years for them to move into a new place. This helps them significantly because, of course, the taxes are passed on to the tenant, but especially this area here, it's not well desired for office space. If it wasn't for the abatement program, we wouldn't have.
That's
6
a
or 7
question, Chuck.
neighborhoods.
The question is, can you target the abatements? And I say no, because when you're in an abatement program, it's applicable to the entire town.
Correct.
You either have it or you don't have it.
The way it is now, correct.
It's either the whole-
Back in the early 80s, you were allowed to designate areas. And the state has since changed the rules that now you have to designate your entire.
so you can't target blighted geographic areas. You have to go
It's a
all
very
town or nothing.
difficult term to use blighted.
All right, you can't target,
Economically needed.
Underutilized, underutilized, another term that they use.
but just to go on what Mr. Palumbo was saying, we're saying this developer wouldn't have opened up commercial space here without an abatement. That's a bad investment then, because 5 years it runs out, and it even runs out during the course of the 5 years. I don't think any developer would put all the money up front that's needed and say, this is a bad investment unless I get this little money, this amount of money at the beginning, or it's not worth for all the upfront. A developer has to put in all the resources, all the capital. It better be a viable project with an abatement or without an abatement.
How can you say that?
Well, how can you say it is? We're all talking anecdotally,
Because
but
it's
they're bad things.
Can I finish, please?
Abatements are
That whole
undesirable things.
project, that whole project was a planned project, and it's been growing exponentially with the knowledge that the abatement exists.
But we don't
Why
know.
would they have come in the first place? If
You
they
don't
didn't
know.
have-
Why?
At
Because
first,
it's,
you don't know either.
yeah, you don't know. So why are we giving them out like, why don't we know
Because
more before we give out
We
canned
need to be
abatements?
competitive. We need to
It's
be
an
competitive.
incentive, just like Denise asked.
You don't
We
want to be
just heard,
competitive?
we just heard Blackwood Clemington Road has the most traffic of any town, any road in the county or something. And these outlets, we put in new infrastructure, new roads and bridges and circles. We're doubling and tripling on the incentive, but we're really just giving it away when it's an undesirable thing, and we should know more about what we're doing before we do it.
We're not going to agree. Okay? We're not going to agree. You've made your point.
You think
I think you're wrong.
tax abatements are fair?
I think you're wrong.
You think they're
okay?
fair? It's a
You
fair
never answered the
instrument.
question. How do you feel about the outlets? How much money are we generating from tax revenue from the outlets? Chuck?
Currently, with the pilots,
Yeah.
probably over $3 million.
Well, that's on Black Horse Pike, which is
Tax revenue
it's
of
an
$3
area
million.
that needed the help.
And what, would you have liked to have seen that go to a different town? I'd like a yes or no on that.
Would I like to see the outlets? No. That looks like
So
a,
you'd like to keep it here?
but we don't know whether the abatements were the
Hey, you
different.
want it both ways.
And big
You're
outlet
arguing out of
company
both
wouldn't
sides
put
of your
that
mouth,
$50
Pete.
million up.
Both sides, Pete.
A big developer,
Makes no sense.
a big developer would not put upfront $50 million if a good project versus a bad project hinges on a tax abatement. That's
Pete, if I
That's
say
fail-
red,
that's gonna
you're
fail.
gonna say yellow. If I say yellow, you say red. We're not gonna agree. Just leave it like that.
Can we go back to this ordinance?
well,
Do you have any more
well, this is
questions?
on
before-
ordinance 16 is referenced in this
Okay.
ordinance, so I'm referencing ordinance
Okay, This is
16.
whenever, we're going back to ordinance 0-19-17.
Yeah, and in there it references 16. So
Okay.
I'm dealing with that. I'm dealing with this ordinance.
All
I'm
right.
dealing with it. But that's all I have.
Thank you, yes. Yes.
I hear a concern for Blackwood Clemington Road, which I think is a concern for all of us, as well as the Black Horse Pike, certain corridors around Church Street, going towards the outlets. And I hear the concern for Blackwood Clemington. And I think the whole idea of abatements is to be competitive, because everyone around you is offering them, regardless of how we may feel about them, Mr. Honball. The fact that every town around us is offering them, and you do have, businesses that are looking for that. Some have not and didn't ask, and the abatement wasn't given because it wasn't mentioned. But I hope that you recognize that we're interested in all parts of the township. I know Blackwood Clemington Road is going a little slower than you would like, but I think we heard a lot of building and things that are going on, and that push is there. So I guess the whole idea is for us to push for the entire township, but keep in mind that Blackwood Clemington Road, as I'm hearing, is important to a lot of you.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Sweet?
Sam Sweet from Ariel. Just want to get clarification, clarification first. The tax abatements that ordinance, whatever that was, that you just read, it's all or nothing? You can't designate, okay, south end of Blackwood, this zip code is blighted, this zip code's not.
It's for the entire town,
It's the entire town or nothing?
correct.
Okay, so, all right. As far as to answer your point, Mr. Hutchinson, no, wouldn't like the outlets to go elsewhere. And no, I wouldn't want Dave and Buster's to go elsewhere. Okay, my problem with tax abatements though is nothing's going into the schools. From that, if I'm understanding it, a pilot program, 95% goes to the township, 5% goes to the county, with nothing being allocated to the schools. So that's my problem with it, is now you're bringing these businesses in, which then make the township more attractive, but more people come in and more people mean more children for the schools. What's the cost of, I don't know what the cost off the top of my head from educating a child to the township from K through 8, but no money's coming in for that. So that's my problem with the tax abatements.
So can I respond to that? So 5 years ago, before the outlets were there, and those who've attended these meetings for years will know, and I say this often, the total combined taxes that we received, because it was farmland assessed for that property, 56 to 60 acres, less than $5,000 combined. What was that spitting off to our school district? But 5 years later, year 5 is 2020 of that tax abatement. Now they're paying 90% in the year of 2020. Next year, it's 100%. What's being spin off to our school district and our fire and our county and our library? That's an investment.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm just saying, Mr. Hutchinson asked, what's the problem with that? So that's what my problem is. Okay, for 5 years or however long these pilot programs last, because some pilot programs do last longer than 5 years. Now,
You know, I guess a perfect example, we don't put in sidewalks. We put in sidewalks and streets for today, but they also last over time. This was planning. We put this development, this project there, we provided a tax abatement to them, and what that's going to spin off for our township, is immeasurable. It's a valuable piece of property that's there. I take a look at that's how I say it. I guess I'm half full rather than half empty.
I'm half full too, but also this is a debate for another time whether or not brick and mortar stores are the way to go.
And that's
That's a debate
we
for
see
another
that
time.
coming too. Exactly, the amount of packages that come to my house.
So,
It'll take like 15 minutes to cut up cardboard to put in recyclables. But absolutely, I'm concerned about that, brick and mortar stores. You know, when you see things that are closed, the Bed Bath & Beyond is closing in Washington Township on Berlin Cross Keys Road. And just yesterday, and I'll give you time, but yesterday after the tree lighting, I went to a place to eat in town here, and this happened that the person who was serving, the person who was a server, is an elected official in another town. I had no idea who it was until this person had a conversation with me. They're dealing with the same issues that we have along their corridor. And we even joked around, said you could change the name on the Facebook page, and it's the same things that are being said in every town. And this individual says, we have to compete with you guys, we have to compete with this town, you know, and we used to consider ourselves a premier township. We got too big. So there are people dealing with it. When Mr. Lechner talked about gray fields, you know, gray fields is a terminology for all these projects that were built in the 60s and 70s, where you put the parking lot in the front and you have the building in the back, because everyone wanted parking in the front. Now that's changed. They don't want parking. They want parking surrounding the building. But if you go down Route 30, the old WT Grant, which the police used for doing driving exercises, going down the Black Horse Pike in the Washington Township, we're all experiencing these issues. We're all competing with each other. So I'm sorry to take up your time. Go ahead.
sorry. With respect to Mr. Lechner's comments about the businesses, McDonald's, Pep Boys, those are businesses that have come in, but they're not going to attract people to come to this township. No one's going to say, hey, let's go to the Gloucester Township McDonald's. Let's go to the Pep Boys. So I'm thinking with all those buildings that are open, we should be concentrating on businesses to bring people here, to go spend money at the McDonald's, to go spend money at the Pep Boys, where, oh, look, we went to, I'm just making this up, Legoland, or rides, amusement park rides, or whatever. They come down here and then they go, oh, well, we want to eat at the McDonald's, or we want to eat at Gallery Pizza, or we want to eat here, and spending money there, as opposed to worrying about a Taco Bell and AT&T store. No one, they're a dime a dozen, in my opinion. So it's just, with all due respect. And I wanted to circle back to you, Mr. Cardis. In 2019, we borrowed as part of the bond.
Sam, is this regarding the ordinance?
No. So,
I save it for public hearing.
okay,
Second
my
portion.
fault.
Anyone else for this public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I entertain a motion to accept ordinance 0-19-17.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Thank you, Mrs. Stubbs. Mr. Hutchison. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Owens?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs? Yes. Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Excuse me, yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next, we have our resolutions on our consent agenda. Any council member that would like to remove any of the items on the consent agenda, please speak up. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Owens?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Before I say yes, on resolution 335, just want to bring everyone's attention. That is to extend the bike path, and I'm glad to see it going north. And the amount of money that we receive to help fund that. Yes to all. We did not receive any GTE Gov access emails. We'll now open up our second public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening again, Council. Ray Polidoro from Ariel.
Good evening.
You may find Chuck Palumbo may be best to answer this question if you see fit. Besides Royal Farms, in the last 5 years, have there been any other places of business that have come into our township that have not asked for nor received a tax abatement that you can remember off the top of your mind?
Off the top of my mind, yes, I think there was one other, I'm trying to think of what it is off the top of my head, but I know there was Royal Farms and there's another one. Pep Boys, thank you. Exactly right, Pep Boys, there's two of them.
Like drop.
Yeah, there's a procedure for them to
It's
come
awfully
in
proud of you to-
before they do the work. And when they do fine, and after the timing somebody's up to do the pre-application, then their time is up, and they usually don't submit an application. So it wasn't a priority for them to develop.
Okay. I'm a Wawa guy, but I become a fan of Royal Farms. Anybody that comes into my town and doesn't ask for a break. One of the things that I find, and I've always found confusing, is that we're a township of 65,000 people. We should already be attractive to a business that wants to come here. And Royal Farms is everywhere, can go everywhere, and is doing so. And as Mr. Sweet had said, other places can go anywhere they want to. We're not just a bed and breakfast town anymore. We're a town that's got a lot of working people, and with the economy as in good a shape as it is right now, I can't see why our town is not attractive without a tax abatement. Deptford, Voorhees, I don't think Voorhees is giving them out like we are. Voorhees has a natural attraction, as some towns will have on the water towers, the Address for Success, the Premier Community. We got GT, and I don't want to tell you what I think it stands for, but it is Gloucester Township. Why we're giving tax incentives out for companies for a town that claims to be amongst the Address for Success, Premier Community, and we're a good town. We're a nice town, and we have a lot of people that work hard and make a lot of money. There's no reason that we should have to, for lack of a better term, bribe them to come here. The thing that bothers me is that we offer tax abatements and we bring these places in. Mr. Hutchinson asked what would happen. I'm going to use you got a lot of good what ifs. What if the Premium Outlet Mall had never come here? It went from a piece of farmland. There's somebody that made a fortune in selling that farmland. That's a what if. Millionaire became richer with that piece of land, and a good piece of property, Franklin Mills and all the other Simon-owned properties. It's a good place for this place to be. I like the outlet malls. I like when it's a not so cold day and you're Christmas shopping outside, you're going in and out of the stores. And as far as brick and mortar stores, there's a lot of people right now that feel they're going to make a comeback. Porch Pirates are making a great business for themselves, and it makes people want to go out and buy gifts, put them in the trunk, and bring them in the house. But it's an attractive town to want to do business. There's a lot of people to spend money. If you're giving tax abatements away, and at some point they do pay their full freight, why is it that the town can boast all new business coming in, but yet taxes continue to go up? There's got to be some point where, I was talking to the former mayor of Cherry Hill, and he's my customer, he's my friend. We have conversations, and we got a great deal of respect for one another. And one of the things that he said was an issue for towns like ours is lack of ratables. How do you define a ratable when you're bringing business in, and yet you're supposedly building a greater tax base, and yet every other year, the taxpayers are getting hit? When does it become attractive that we bring something in the town that begins to really and truly offset the tax burden of this town and helps out? I mean, I'm not going to really go through the illustrated portion of this again, but you guys and the mayor pride yourselves on a zero increase. We had zero this year, we had zero that year. Zero takes on a whole new definition after you do a 26% tax increase. 000 is 26% higher. You go 8%, the next year is zero. It's 8% higher plus 26. You go 12%. Each time you elevate, and I'm not going to be able to reach up as high as you guys go, but that zero is never really zero. It's always that much higher. There's got to be a point where you bring money into this town where you can say to the taxpayers, a true zero. No more spending. No more tax increases. I don't remember what point somebody said, if we give somebody back 2 cents, I mean, is it really a big deal? Yeah.
Ray, do you make the same amount of money that you did 10 years ago?
Do I make the same amount of money? I'm going to give you a two-part answer. No, I make more, but I bring home a lot less.
Okay, but you make more money. So you're asking us not to increase, but you want an increase in your wage.
Well, the
Everything
difference,
goes up, right?
no, there's some things that are luxury items that don't need to be purchased when people are hurting. We've gone down that road many times.
I mean, a gallon of milk, I don't know, what's it cost? $4?
$3.39.
I remember
you
when it
shopping
was
at?
$2.
Shop right.
A loaf of bread, $2.50. I remember when it was 33 cents. Okay, everything goes up, but you're asking me to not. You want me to miraculously keep the taxes from going up, and in fact, you've asked me to reduce it. You can't.
I'm not going to get into the sports debate, but during the time that this township increased taxes on an every other year basis, in and about that time, up and zero, up and zero, up and zero. We bought very expensive AstroTurf. And at the time, there was a question of the crumb rubber. And now we're using the latest, greatest, safest crumb rubber. Well, I don't know how you can test crumb rubber over a certain period of time when it's brand new. And that still remains to be seen. But those are high dollar items that may or may not have been necessary when people are hurting in taxes and seniors are hurting in taxes. Not just what it costs to run a town, but things that may not necessarily needed to be purchased at a set time while you were raising taxes and raising debt.
I have a question now.
Sure.
Because at the same time that we talk about being attractive, and as you said, you don't know why people don't want to come here. It's those type of items that attract families who have children. We need more, we want more, but it's those type of things that make a difference, that make us different from everybody else to try to attract families. Because I understand what you're saying when you talk about spending, but at the same time, if we want to make money and attract these types of people that you're talking about, then we have to spend a little money to give those things that attract them.
I would
And
respectfully
at the same
disagree.
time, and at the same time, and me probably not living here as I've only been here 20 years, and I'm sure a lot of you a lot longer. This has always been considered a bedroom community. I mean, I understand this township turned down the Deptford Mall. Am I correct on
In
that?
the 60s, yeah.
So we turned down the Deptford Mall at a time where bringing in rateables wasn't really a thought. We were really thinking about that bedroom community. And when we talk about building apartments, it's not my neighborhood. I don't want it here, I don't want it there, but these are the things that bring in kind of rateables, which we do need to bring in more of. But at the same time, I'm hearing we can't spend, but we need to be different in order to attract people, if I'm correct, attract these businesses to come into our town, because I feel like you do. I don't know why they don't want to be here. I want to be here. So I feel the same way. And what can we do to bring them in? But I look at those little nuances, the hockey rinks and the bike trails and the different things that bring different communities or people into our community. I think it's almost like we're making that investment right now. And I understand about taxes, I pay them too. So I understand, but I think we have to figure out where that balance is.
May I respectfully respond to your question with a question?
Ray, you've exceeded your time.
Let me just respond to
Your
the
time,
question
Ray.
with one question.
Ray, you exceeded your time. You can come back if we have some time.
And it was just one question. It was a comparison, that's all. And the simple question was,
Well, Ray, your time's up.
good enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Krug.
Good evening, Council. Paul Krug, Blackwood Estates.
Good evening, Paul.
First of all, Mr. Mercado, thank you for bringing up the bike trail. I had skipped over that. I'm also glad to hear that that's being extended, and I do believe that that is a initiative that is attractive to people. And Ms. Stubbs, thank you for acknowledging that there's priority in Blackwood Clementon and the Blackwood Redevelopment West initiatives. I think it's important to set those as a priority. Mr. Hutchison, just very quickly, for your analogy with inflation, specifically that of commodities, I've brought this up in several other town council meetings where the inflation rate between 15 and 16 was 0.7%, 16 and 17 was 1.7, and 17, 18 was 2.25. So to say the tax is levied at 6.5, 1.9, and 3.5 equates to the inflation, I just don't think that plays. So
I mean, I think your numbers and your statistics, you apparently are much better at that. My point was not that they'd be, I wasn't necessarily saying that we were less than the inflation rate. I'm just trying to make the point that we're not going to be able to keep it at zero, that everything goes up. That was my point.
Okay.
But I get your point.
understood. A lot of talk this evening about Blackwood Clementon and Black Horse Pike, specifically downtown Blackwood, and we got some very constructive raw feedback over the weekend. I'm not sure if anyone saw the article on 42 Freeway about Shayna's Wild Fig opening, and Mark, the author of 42 Freeway, mentioned Blackwood Arts District, and so I was on Facebook, and I have the raw data feedback that I think can be useful. Al Pierce, Billy Foster, and Mike Smith go, wait, Blackwood has an arts district? Question mark. Mark from 42 Freeway responded, I was a little apprehensive about using that. Put it in the title, but not in the Facebook. Apparently it's a thing. Ha. It's part of the mayor's plan to revamp that part of the Black Horse Pike in Blackwood. Lots of funds, local, state, and fed. That's from Sandra. Mark from 42 Freeway responded, and the biggest impact will be from this blog post. A little bit of humor, I suppose. William said, I go to the college in Blackwood, but I've never been downtown. Kimmy said, just because the mayor calls it an arts district doesn't mean it is. Al says, I lived in Dearborn for 10 years, moved to Washington Township a year ago. Showed my wife the article and said, maybe we sold too soon. They have an art district now. She laughed and reminded me that when Mayor told us the outlets would bring more revenue than we would know what to do with. Andrew Michael says it's kind of dumpy there with vacant stores across Church Street. Brian Foster says they want one thing and it never occurs. So a little bit of raw feedback and not my voice you're continuing to hear. I also dropped off some imagery from a video that was put out by Gloucester Township, specifically the mayor's office, I believe, that I guess shows a little bit of pie in the sky of what the Black Horse Pike we would like to look like. It's called the Village of Gloucester Township. Exhibit 1 shows what is now A&P Construction Heavy Equipment Yard, the old boundary fence building. I don't see that turning out as portrayed in the image. Exhibit 2 on the left is where the new Dollar General is being built. It was an old dilapidated building, so I guess that's an improvement. It certainly doesn't look like the apartment complexes with commercial below. Exhibit 3, where folks are doing yoga and enjoying tea and coffee outside, that's the Knowles gas station on the Black Horse Pike in downtown Blackwood. And then, of course, my pet project and my favorite, Exhibit 4, is the shops at Gloucester Township, which don't look anything like the imagery. So between what is a 15-year-old, 10% complete redevelopment plan for Blackwood West, a arts district that is a joke from what we've seen in the comments, and a village of Gloucester Township that seems to be a pie in the sky, who is setting the smart goals? And when I say smart, I'm talking about what's commonly used in industry, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals that we can look to.
Mr. Krug, I'm sorry your time's up. Perhaps if you had used your time more wisely rather than reading Facebook postings for 2 minutes, we would have answered that question for you. Before you sit down, before anyone comes up to speak here, I think the comments that are made in these chambers here I think that my colleagues, I know I personally, will be more receptive to those comments if they weren't dripping with sarcasm. Not just you, but other individuals in this hall. There's chuckles, it's a joke, reading Facebook postings. We know who goes on Facebook. There's people who will troll anything. But that's how you wanted to spend your 5 minutes. Thank you for your time.
I think we received raw feedback.
Is there anyone else?
Taken into consideration.
Ms. Coyne.
There's not going to be an answer to the question.
Ms. Coyne's up.
Denise Coyne, Tuesday neighborhood. I just wanted to clarify my previous comment. I, was trying to make a point of if the whole township is an area in need of rehabilitation and businesses, we're looking to attract businesses. My question is, isn't there some way we could have the Economic Development Committee try to figure out a way to attract businesses to the areas that need them the most? Because in my estimation, from what I've heard and seen by coming to these meetings, this township is desperately in need of businesses, not more residences. We need ratables. We need businesses. And I'm wondering if, I just really don't see what the incentive is for a new business to come into the township and go to Blackwood Clementon Road and be surrounded by empty buildings and gray fields versus going to someplace like the outlets. So I'm wondering if that's something that, maybe the township could look at and see if we could figure out some solution to that.
I'll forward your comments to our economic development consultant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sweet.
Sam Sweet from Ariel. A couple questions. Mr. Carter said that the $1 million equates to 2 cents,
That's a little bit
give or take.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
So and I apologize if I'm reading this incorrectly. If we're raising it up 12 cents and $1 million equates to 2 cents, isn't that like a 16% increase roughly? Or did I mishear you?
I'm sorry.
You said that there was $1 million equates to a 2 cent raise, but then right after that you said, well, when we go up 12 cents,
Said about 12 cents. When did I say that?
I could have sworn that. I just wanted
One
clarification.
time there was a 24-cent increase.
Okay, so a 2 cent, that's 10%. That's almost
Prior to 2010.
okay. So if there's a 24 cents and we're giving 2 cents, that's a little. It's
I didn't say anything about the cents. I don't know what the budget.
okay. I just wanted clarification on that. So
We have to close out the books. We have to do the unaudited annual financial statements, at which time we'll begin to put the budget together, and then we'll figure out where we are.
all right. With respect to Mr. Hutchinson, other townships' taxes stay the same or go down. So when you say the blanket comment that we can't do it, can other townships do it?
Which one are you referring to?
Evesham has held 0
For how long?
last 2 years.
Okay, prior to that. How long is it, are you telling me in the last 10 years they haven't raised their taxes?
Galloway Township, yes.
No, we're talking Evesham.
Okay, I did not go back 10 years. I'm just saying the last 2 years.
Yeah, but let's talk 10 years.
I'll have to go back and get back to you on that.
And how about Galloway over the last 10 years?
Galloway, the last 6 years, has not raised taxes. In fact, it's gone down. Okay, but when you make a blanket statement that they can't go down, or we can't hold the line, I think that's just being very, in my opinion, it's a blanket statement. I think they can go down and we can hold the line.
Where did, and this could erupt into a lengthy conversation, but you've looked at the budget in the last couple of years, right? You've looked at the budget.
I've not looked at the budget that you guys have gotten. I've looked at the budget that we get. It's slightly different. Your budget's a little bigger.
So where would you cut? I've asked you that question.
I would love to sit down and see the budget that you guys get, the detailed, line by line item. And then I could be better equipped to answer that question.
Okay, so you don't have an answer.
Right now, I don't.
Okay.
Mr. Cardis had mentioned, if going back to, this is going to go to ordinance 19-220 back in July. Council agreed to send Camden County $158,807 for the light on Cross Keys and Kearsley Road. We borrowed $150,000 for that, bonded it and all that, but now we're sending $158,000. So did the bid come in higher in that scenario? How does that work?
Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the bid came in higher, but we are paying less.
Bid came in way higher, we're paying less than 50%.
I think we're paying 120, 125 cent rate, or?
Maybe something around there. The bids came in much higher as that bid opening for the county. The mayor and the three orders of the county were, I don't know what they hashed out, but we were trying to hold the line.
Your information's inaccurate. That's not what we're paying. That's not what
Well, no, this is the ordinance, so I'm just reading off the ordinance, so that's why I'm asking for clarification. I know we borrowed $150,000 for that light on Cross Keys and Kearsley.
but you said we made a payment of $158,000.
It says, whereas the Township of Gloucester has determined that it will reimburse the amount of $158,807 to the County of Camden for the traffic signals improvements on Berlin Cross Keys Road, CR 689, and Kearsley Road in Gloucester Township at the completion of the traffic signal improvements project.
That payment has not been made, to my knowledge, and it's not going to be that high. It's going to be less than that.
Okay, so what we borrowed 150, and you're saying that's going to be less than the 150 or less than 158?
I believe so. That's my recollection.
Do we know how much less, or?
Again, I want to say it's somewhere around 125.
Okay, but we authorized up.
Yes, the project went out for bid and came in higher.
Okay, all right, and I guess my question is, with the light, why are we paying, and are we paying half of it because Kearsley Road is a township road and Cross Keys is a county road? Why are we paying half of it? If,
I can't speak to why you guys budgeted that way.
I'm assuming that's the route.
can I get clarification on that? Is Kearsley Road a township road?
Yes. Kearsley is township.
Kearsley is a township road, so we're paying roughly approximately half of the light?
Kearsley is a township, yeah.
Okay, so then we're half of
It's a
it.
collaborative effort.
Collaborative effort. Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? This will be the last speaker of the evening. Mr. Polidoro.
Council Ray Polidoro area again, if I may just continue, and I will keep this very brief. I was hoping to respond to Ms. Stubbs in her question/statement about the athletic fields and what have you to attract
I didn't have a question, I was just.
and the family to Gloucester Township. If I were to ask you comparatively, you're seeing a family wanting to find a place to live, and you're looking at Gloucester Township. What would you put more weight on? The sports fields, the premium sports fields, or above average schools?
There's a lot of factors that people look at, whether it's schools. I mean, you have people who live in the townships where schools may not have the highest performance any given year, but yet people still move in. If you're asking me if they're looking for performance of schools, I'll say all of the above.
Okay, I mean, that's.
All of the above. If I bring I moved to Gloucester Township with my kids. I like the fact I had my kids in decent schools. And the township also offered decent activities for my kids. And that was part of the reason for me moving here. And I think you brought up a valid point, as I said, about this is a place that you want to move into. But I also asked, those little nuances, those little differences that we talk about paying for, are some of those things attractive also to families? Because we could pick a lot of things, schools, the police force, activities for kids. I mean, there's a lot of factors that we can look at.
And I guess it's a pretty good answer. I mean, all the above with schools and athletic fields. It somehow, I guess, though, would not make our town so attractive to those that don't have children or seniors.
Well, I mean, you have that also. I mean, you also have housing here for seniors. I mean, what you're looking for is the perfect package for everyone. And a township tries to have a balance of that. So, you know, you look for that balance of activities for those who are seniors, which we do have. We have transportation for seniors, we have housing for seniors. There's activities, different activities that you find in the township for seniors. At the same time, you have activities for children. So it all depends on what your need is as a family. And every family has a different need.
And again, a high tax rate and what it brings with it is good family wise. I would choose probably schools above, premium fields and what have you. Although we've got good fields and excellent hockey rinks, but I'm looking for a performance. If I'm choosing for a family with school age children, I'm looking for finer schools where we used to be at one
I'm
time.
not disagreeing with you. As I said again, you'll still have families move into areas where schools can use improvement. You'll still find that. So again, it's a balance, and it's up to every family where they want to go.
Thanks. And I have to say, this is as much as I've heard you speak in many council meetings that I've come. It was great to converse with you. Everybody have a great night. Be safe going home.
Thank you. Now closes the second public portion. Calling the directors.
Mr. Garlemere?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cardis?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Lechner?
Nothing to report.
Chief Harkins?
Just two things, just to inform council. I want to give a shout out to Target on Cross Keys Road. This past Saturday, we had one of our favorite events, our Shop with a Cop event, where we were able to take 23 children from our township and really had a great time shopping with them. Great interaction with the officers, and it was just a great event. So Target really accommodates and is a partner with us. We've been doing it for several years, and it was really a tremendous event. We got unofficial notification. We got verbally told, and I want to acknowledge her. Corporal Jen McLaughlin was informed that we came out #1 in the country for our National Night Out event. Not only the state, but in the country, and I know how much she puts into it. She's the coordinator of the event. She puts a lot of time in, so I just want to acknowledge Jen for a great job by her getting us to that great achievement. So, thank you. Have a good night.
Fantastic, Chief. That Target and that entire plaza was a tax abatement. Thank you. And they pay full freight. Next.
Mr. Chavo?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Hutchison?
I'd like to compliment you, Mr. Mercado. Your statement regarding people who approach the microphone and make comments dripping in sarcasm, that is right on. I approach these council meetings with a very positive outlook. I said hello to Pete as I came in. I said hello to you, Ms. Paul, as we were walking through the gate. I even let you go in before me. But then you approach the microphone and you read garbage. You don't know those people. You don't know where they're coming from, but you read it as if it's the gospel. You don't take into consideration the positive stuff that the chief lays out about us being potentially #1 in the country on National Night Out. That means nothing to you.
Mr. Krug, Mr. Krug, Mr. Krug, Mr. Krug, Mr. Krug. It's Mr. Hutchinson's time. Mr. Krug, you spoke earlier.
So I compliment you, Mr. Mercado, for saying it like it is and handling these meetings the way you do. You do a great job. Thank you.
Mr. Owens?
Thanks for coming out tonight. Where I've got my notes here. Chief, thanks for men and women of the GTPD, as always, for keeping us safe, and for the Blackwood Christmas Parade and the tree lighting. Thanks to Public Works also for the quick cleanup for both of the events. For all the residents, staff, folks that have contributed to the toy drive. And just some public announcements. Santa Claus is coming to your neighborhood. In Glendora, Fire District #1 is December 17th. Shoes Landing, Fire District #2 on the 15th for Somerville Road, the 23rd for the rest of the district. Blenheim, Fire District 3 is the 17th. Blackwood, Fire District 4, the 17th, Lamb's Terrace, Fire District 5, the 14th, and Ariel, Fire District 6, the 13th, and the 14th. And find them on Twitter also. So,
Mr. Stubbs? Well, thanks everybody for coming out. You know, always, we listen. Sometimes it gets a little frustrating. We always like everyone to put their best foot forward. Sometimes we have nights that are a little more smooth. Sometimes we a little rough around the edges, but I think the idea is that we want the best for our township. I think we all want that. Jen McLaughlin, you are fabulous, as always. Thanks for, that was a great night out, and congratulations on your honor being #1. Chief, Target is always wonderful. My whole neighborhood was on line, wondering what was going on. I had to tell them, you know, we do shop with a cop every year, and they all thought it was wonderful, and I think a couple went over. So just thanks for the police department putting those extra efforts in for our kids. And everybody have a great night. Thank you.
Mrs. Winters? I just want to thank everyone for coming out. I also want to thank the support that the troops who came home last night through the armed forces from the reserves, that they got the support from the county and the township and everyone. It was absolutely amazing. My best friend's son and another family friend were part of those troops. I wasn't there, but I saw videos and everything, and it was absolutely amazing the welcome that they received, and they deserve every ounce of it. You know, being away from home for I think it was 10.5 months. So thank you to everyone who supported that event. And Jen, I know National Night Out, you always say it's your Christmas, so it was the best one yet, is what we're hearing. We'll see where we go next year. Have a great night, everyone.
Mrs. Trotter?
I just want to give a shout out to my fellow neighbors in Glendora at a time where a lot of us have a lot of different opinions and difference of how we would do things. I give a shout out to Tara Gervaisi, who's really working hard in Glendora to bring the residents together, no matter what our opinions are, with different activities within the town. And I think it says a lot about our community and Gloucester Township as a whole, working together despite our differences for the betterment of our community and the betterment of for us for Glendora, bringing us all together. We're doing our first ever house lighting competition, and they've been posting on the page, and they're having the night awards night where the community of Glendora can come together with Santa and all that. And I give her a lot of credit for bringing us together and staying away from all the negativity that you see on social media and Facebook. So kudos to the residents in Glendora for bringing us together.
Mr. Mercado?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I'd like to thank the Blackwood Fire Company for another fantastic Blackwood Christmas parade in downtown Blackwood, which attracts people to downtown Blackwood. People spend money. I know I did afterwards, eating in our town. I'd like to thank the police, Public Works, and the fire department for their efforts on that. Last night was also our tree lighting here in town. Each year it gets bigger and bigger. The carousel rides, the rides, pony rides, and Santa being there. I want to thank the mayor's office, Public Works, and the police department for their efforts there, as well as the fire department. This Saturday at the rec center is the Santa brunch at 10 o'clock. And I just want to briefly just summarize a letter that the American Legion, Setzer Lamartine Post 281 sent us, addressed to me. The Post had sent me a letter. We at American Legion Post 281 would like to take the opportunity to thank you and the Gloucester Township Council for your efforts to recognize the students in Gloucester Township that participate in New Jersey Boys State and Girls State this year. With your attendance at our October open meeting to recognize these students, you showed them that their efforts were recognized not only by the American Legion itself, but also by their surrounding community. Your invite for them to assist them with running your council meeting in November was very generous, and it was really quite a wonderful experience for all involved. The students this year were really outstanding young people. I know they enjoyed the experience at the council meeting, as did the American Legion members that attended. It goes on to may you and your family and council enjoy the holidays and look forward to a great 2020. For God and country, Commander Tony Santinello. And that's something I'd like to continue, that we have boys state and girls state attend our meetings. With that, I entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Good.
Turn your back. Civilian clothes.
Good night. Tony, did you put contracts? They're on the shelf. Oh, no, sorry.